team. This tutorial shows you how to make 2 cards that measure 6 inches by 6 inches or 15.24 centimeters squared. Each card has a space where you can write your message and a little envelope where you can put a gift card or some gift money. These cards are really easy to make and they use only a few supplies. So let's get started. We'll be using the Childhood Crayons large paper pack, which measures 30.5 centimeters squared. We'll be using the quotes from Carols in the Snow. It has English on one side and Polish on the other side. A sheet of envelopes to cut from Childhood Crayons. The extras to cut Christmas collection from Childhood Crayons. And the quotes in frames collection also from Childhood Crayons, along with liquid glue, dry adhesive, a glue gun, and of course, gold glitter. First, I'm going to cut all the extras to cut by hand out with scissors so I can choose some embellishments for my cards. Next, I'm going to cut out and form 2 of the envelopes. That will make room for our gift card or gift money. But with the extra that I'm not using, I'm going to use the back. Use a little liquid glue to form the envelope. This will be perfect for a gift card. The Childhood Crayons paper collection includes 3 postcards on the back of the packaging and also includes 6 sheets of double-sided patterned paper. One of the sheets includes some cut-aparts, and we'll use those for the places to write your Christmas message or other message inside the card. I chose the green paper for my card base, and I'm just going to cut that piece in half. But first I will cut off that bottom strip and save for another project. I'll score and fold in half as well. I chose the blue paper to use as a front panel. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces that are 5.5 inches squared or 13.97 centimeters squared. You can choose any paper you want for the card base and the front panel. These are just the ones I chose to demonstrate. If you want, you can open your scissors and carefully distress the edges of the paper, but this step is optional. I like to lay all my extras to cut out so I can see them, and then I choose the ones I want for my project. I'm going to use 2 of the quotes in frames as seals for the little envelopes we made. Even though that piece has an envelope on the one side, I'm going to use the back and trace my tape roll to get a circle shape. I'll cut out the 2 circles and use them on the front of each card. If you have punches, you can use some punches on the scraps of paper here and save the punch shapes for other projects. If you want, you can also distress the edges of the circles. I chose to use the red paper to cut panels measuring 4 inches by 4 inches or 10.16 centimeters by 10.16 centimeters. Next, I'm going to make embellishments with the gold glitter and my hot glue gun. You will need a non-stick, heat-resistant surface. My table is covered with a craft mat that can withstand heat, so I'm using my glue gun right on the craft mat. I carefully create small, round glue gun dots. Not all of the dots come out looking perfectly round, so I keep the ones that look good. I sprinkle a little bit of glitter over top and gently rub my finger over the glue dot as it's cooling. The glitter sticks to the hot glue, and the hot glue dot pops right off of the mat when it's dry. Because it's hot glue, you can trim the dot with scissors. And the excess glitter wipes right up. I tried to use my hot glue for this project, but it didn't stick as well as I wanted. I really think that the liquid glue works best. I like to set an acrylic block down on top of my project so that it helps to dry flat. I'm going to use scrap pieces from an old shoebox to give some of the embellishments a little bit of lift and dimension. So I cut strips of the cardboard and here is where the hot glue gun will work best to stick the cardboard to the little embellishments. I even stack cardboard on top of more cardboard for more dimension. I'm using a little bit of sandpaper here because there's a smooth side of the cardboard and a dull side of the cardboard. So I use the sandpaper to rough up the smooth side so it sticks a little better to the paper. Here I'm using the Carols in the Snow quotes. I love these quotes. They have English on one side, Polish on the other side, and lots of varieties. This time I'm using the sandpaper before I stick the cardboard to the quote. It will be much easier. I'm using a strong double-sided tape to adhere the panel to the card base, but you could use liquid adhesive if you wanted to instead. Decide if you would like your card to open sideways or up and down. You could use one of those punches from your scraps from earlier to decorate, or you could just save those for another project. You could leave the envelope stay open, or you could wrap a ribbon around the back of the envelope before you stick it down. I had a removable glue dot nearby, so I used that instead. Or you could just leave the envelope open. Use dots of liquid glue to adhere your glitter glue dot embellishments. I didn't use my glue gun because I didn't want the glue gun to melt my glitter dots. The front of our first card is done. We need to work on the inside, the part where you will write. I ended up changing the measurements of this piece that I'm cutting here, so I'll post those measurements in a little bit. At first I thought I was going to just use that piece by itself, but it looked so plain, so I thought I would instead combine it with a piece from one of the paper collection pieces. Then I remembered that some of those cut-apart pieces have lines, which would be perfect to write your message inside the card. I trimmed this piece down to measure 12.7 centimeters by 9.5 centimeters. You can use any piece you want for the background, but I thought the black one with the white dots would be perfect. So I trimmed it down to 10.8 centimeters by 13.5 centimeters. Look how perfectly the dots go right around the edge. That looks much better. I like the black outline, and it looks great with that little bell for an embellishment on top. This piece was already basically cut out, but I trimmed it down to 10.8 centimeters by 13.9 centimeters. And that white piece that I had cut earlier, I marked with my fingernail and trimmed that down to 7.62 centimeters by 11.43 centimeters. You can see that it's the back of the envelopes to cut sheet from earlier. This will be the inside of the second card, where the person can write their message. And I decided to decorate the inside of that one with ornaments to make it look a little different. Here are some of my punched pieces from earlier that I thought might look good to embellish the top. You don't have to do that, but it's a nice option if you have the punches. One side of the scrap is even colored a little bit green because it was the back of those envelopes to cut that we didn't use. Look how that strip at the top perfectly matches the inside of the card. Yes, that is something I did not plan to happen, and I love it. I'm using a little distress ink just to separate the edge of the top of the strip from the rest of the card. I'm cutting out a small strip of the quote that says joy, and I'm going to cover up that little bit of Polish phrase that sticks out on the bottom of the envelope. This way, when the recipient opens the envelope, they will see the word joy. If you speak Polish and the English phrase sticks out, you could do the same thing. This time I used a liquid glue to adhere the panel to the card instead of trying to do it with the glue gun. The glue gun works great for smaller areas, I think. We're going to assemble the second card the same way as we did the first card, just building piece by piece on top. I like using cardboard for dimension, but if you have foam tape, you could use that too. I used some double-sided tape to continue to build the card. Notice how the design on the circle is a grid pattern and the design on the blue panel is also a grid pattern. Be careful that the grid patterns line up. As I am building this card, I notice that it looks like my Santa and the presents are floating. And I fix that later. Here you can just play with the embellishments and decide what looks good to you. The hot glue stays wet for just a minute so I could tuck my extra piece of a punched piece underneath there. I thought about using those stars, but it just looked like too much. Plus, I knew I still had to add my glitter dots to this card. If you look closely on the pile of dots on my table, you can see that I made some glitter dots with red glitter. You can use any color glitter that you want. These cards were really easy to make and really fun to make as well. Here's a final look at the cards. Before I show you close-ups, I had to fix that Santa. He just looked like he was floating, so I tore a small piece of the paper just to give him a ground to stand on. If you didn't want to do this, you could probably place your snowman and presents a little lower on the card. Or you could use a different strip of paper. That looks much better. Much better. And it provides balance with the quote on top. And there's a look at our finished cards. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial. And thank you for subscribing to the Craft O'Clock channel. Don't forget to find Craft O'Clock on social media. And we will see you in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.